Hello and welcome to the Rupeeting podcast. My name is Ayush, and we have Sagar back on the podcast again. And finally, a new member. We keep rotating between members, but this one seems to be here to stay. We have Chaitanya on the podcast today for the first time. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello guys, Chaitanya here. It's been almost 20 days since I joined Rupeeting. It's good to be my first podcast. So yeah,
Nice.
hello everyone.
As much as it may look like he's being held, regardless of his will, he's voluntarily here for 20 days with Rupeeting. And before we begin with the podcast, sorry, what were you saying?
Two less.
Too But yeah, before we begin with the podcast, as always, none of what we speak during the course of the next half an hour, 45 minutes, is investment advice in any way. It's all educational and entertainment in nature, and it's to be taken in that way. And yeah, we can go ahead with starting today's topic, but it starts with just a little bit of a reminder of what happened sometime last year in July. I think a big moment for India that happened, I think, mid July in 2023 was the fact that we finally launched a very successful lunar mission, which was Chandrayaan 3, right?
Yeah.
And sometime in August, it finally landed, becoming a success after the software failure that Chandrayaan 2 saw, and everyone was disheartened by it. So Chandrayaan 3, great achievement. It was one of the, it is the most cost-effective lunar mission of its nature with the, I think it was at 600 crores or something, and the Russian one was 1600 crores, and the Barbie movie was 900 crores. So clearly they did a great job.
Also the first one to went on South Pole.
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
But you know
So all,
all the like after it landed, so CNBC and all these guys, all the newspapers had given a list of Chandrayaan stocks. So
yeah,
anybody who had contributed to Chandrayaan in any way. So there was a list of about 13 to 15 companies. Now guess the absolute amount by which the market cap of these 13 to 15 stocks increased on the day Chandrayaan landed on the moon. Now that you put context with these numbers, right? 600 crores,
yeah.
900 crores, and all of that. Now the market cap of these 13 to 15 stocks, which contributed to Chandrayaan meaningfully.
Meaningfully or even a small screw they might have supplied.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything was
So you're
crucial.
taking the cumulative increase in market
Cumulative
cap.
increase in market cap. Absolute.
20,000 crore.
Wow, bang on.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
That's insane. Oh shit. 30,000 is not a small number.
Yeah, one day I think the market factored in, I don't know how many such missions, 30 such missions plus.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh my God.
33 close.
Yeah.
But it was that big a deal,
But what
also,
is
so
the
it makes
now?
sense.
Most of them is now already deflated that amount.
Yeah, I'm
Like
sure. Like it was just
2022.
like a euphoric. I think in the same time, so July mein to ye Chandrayaan 3, and then I think sometime in September was that Aditya L1 mission. So a lunar mission and then a solar mission. So a
Solar
lot of
mission.
these space aerospace companies did really well during that
Pretty much.
particular quarter.
But no, as Chaitanya says, no, like it depends on like even that screw. It
Yeah,
may
yeah,
be meaningful from a functional standpoint
Yeah.
or
yeah,
sentimental standpoint,
yeah.
but from a order value and monetary perspective, it's absolutely nothing. So a
Yeah.
lot of
Nothing.
these is, and the classic example is Linde India, right? It's one of those stocks which provided gas for Chandrayaan 3 and Chandrayaan and any other lunar or whatever solar mission, usually
Yeah.
to maneuver these aircrafts in the middle of space. They leave gas from one side
Yes.
to tilt the craft. So that order value is going to be meaningless.
Yeah.
Uh,
Hmm.
or it can be used to whatever fuel up, propel the plane further or use it as a fuel or
Combustion
what,
related. Yeah.
combustion related. But still, like the order value in terms of volume absolutely must be insignificant.
Yeah.
Uh,
But just by association to those missions,
Hmm.
they got such a boost in just.
yeah.
Although it may not have made a difference to their revenues, but to their stock price, they were definitely factored in that contribution.
Valuation.
Yes.
Also, a little bit of patriotism was there. Like,
Yeah,
हमारा
yeah,
देश,
absolutely.
yeah, that is also there.
Absolutely. Yes. So, again, back to this particular mission and the fact that just by association, some of these stocks do really well. One of these stocks that did well was one of the companies that was responsible for the actual rocket propulsion system that allowed the Chandrayaan 3 to carry the immense payload of fuel and everything that it had on board. And it was only possible because of the tech and the manufacturing that this particular company was responsible for. And it's called MTAR Technologies. So it's
Woohoo.
very, yeah, very cool, very cool. Like, I think we haven't covered a rocket stock before, quite literally a rocket stock. But yeah, much like a rocket, I think during that particular quarter, the stock price rose by around 40-45% solely because of its attribution to the lunar and solar missions. Although from an order book and revenue perspective, it didn't even cross the 20% mark. But apart from just being part of the space and defense related fields, what it's more commonly known for, and this is why I think it's a lot like Stark Tech from the Marvel movies, because while it does space and defense, it does your clean energy, it does nuclear power, it does reactors, it does manufacturing. So a lot of cool industries that it's placed itself well in, and one of the main ones that it currently is in, and in fact entered only 5 or 6 years ago, is the whole notion of clean energy. So it sounds cool, but since that entire rally of 40-45% happened back from July to September 2023, since then the stock's been down like 21-24%. Now, a few events led to that. One of them being a lot of profit booking happening because valuations were too high. A lot of insiders or promoters selling it because they wanted a profit book to an extent. A lot of bulk deals where the promoters sold their stakes and sold it to other mutual funds or institutions. And more noteworthily, the second quarter of FY24 turned out to be a little bit of a bummer because the entire call started with the MD saying that, oh, we really expected insane revenues coming in for FY24 to the tune of 850 crores as opposed to about 570 in FY23. But that 830 is now maybe 670 or 700 because one particular order is not going to come in.
Sorry, how much growth is that?
So
870.
as opposed to 45% growth year on year between FY24 and 23, it is now going to be maybe 20%. So 25 percentage points blown off. And similarly is how the share price also reacted, with the stock down 25% since the announcement of this. So investors lost confidence because of this. But while we looked at the numbers and we looked at the actual story, it doesn't
But that
seem
may
like
not
there
be
is.
true, like
Yeah.
investor confidence being lost, I think, is uh, a conclusion you can derive if valuations take a hit. However,
Yeah.
in this case, if the earnings impact downgrade has been to the tune of 25% and the stock is exactly 25% down, that
Yeah.
essentially means the stock price is factoring in just reduced earnings and not
Right.
really any valuation derating.
Yeah.
So investors might still be confident of the numbers coming through or the long-term story being intact or the
Yeah.
overall company being where it
Solid.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, the revenue is
That's true.
delayed, it's not cancelled, right?
Exactly. So,
Ah, it's a deferment. Yeah.
correct. So, again, a lot of that clarification wasn't really done to the media. And I think a lot of people who were invested didn't see that clarification being given to them. So, I think it's only fair that we do that first. So, as Chaitanya mentioned, it's a deferment of revenue, in which case about 160, 170 crores worth of revenue that was supposed to come in the third and fourth quarter will now be coming in possibly in the first quarter of FY25. And this is also because uh, one of their largest clients, which contributes to about 51% of revenues, is this company called Bloom Energy that redacted or deferred this order. Now, for context, Chaitanya, can you explain what Bloom Energy is from our notes?
But sorry, it's 51% of total revenue or 51% only of their clean energy revenue.
No, no, total revenue.
That's a high client concentration.
Sorry.
Total
That's
revenue.
high client concentration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of that's a fairly large risk that they hold there.
I
But
think
they,
every mid cap company in this space does have that risk to some level. Like various
Yeah.
stages. Like I remember every engineering company as well. Like this is
Yeah.
into hardware, but like some companies like KPIT, Scient, all of these at some point
Have had a
had
large.
100% revenue coming in from this Chetan, a lot of background.
I think you can shut the door. It's okay.
Ah,
Uh,
Echo
so
is better than.
we'll pause here.
Yeah.
Yeah, because even when he's
Fine.
quiet, there's constant. That's what I was saying. That Naman wala problem will
Uh,
happen here.
yeah.
Hmm?
Okay, we'll restart at the 11th minute in 10 seconds. Yeah. So you were saying something like
So a lot of
that.
software mid cap companies also, when they were much smaller, even smaller than now, had a lot of issues with client concentration, and these sort of go both ways, right? I mean, this KPIT majority client or majority revenue came from Cummins. For Scient, it was Pratt and Whitney. So everyone's got this one anchor client,
Yeah.
which acts in both ways. It helps them scale up as well, but at the same time, there's enhanced risk in terms of if something goes wrong with the client, then the direct impact happens on the company.
Yeah.
And these companies, till the time the revenue becomes like 25%, 30%, comes to that level, they go through these cycles pretty constantly.
Yeah.
So I think a similar thing must be happening with MTAR as well. But with like
Yeah.
growing at 25, 40, 50% every year, it may not be far away that such large swings solely because of one client reduce in frequency and
Yeah.
in content over time.
Yeah. It's also that I think this is the first time this has happened in the 5, 6 years that they've had association with Bloom Energy, and solely for the. It's not that it was an unbased deferment. There were solid reasons for them having to defer this order. One of them being that.
Which Chaitanya will explain.
Yes, please. First, explain. Do you like just give a little context what who Bloom Energy is or what they do?
yeah, so Bloom Energy, it's a US based company. So they can be called as clean energy company because they use something called as solid oxide fuel cell, which is like taking into methane into a machine and then deriving a hydrogen out of it. So instead of using other polluting material, which like metals or something,
Yeah.
they use methane to convert, yeah. So it is like 50% less polluting. Plus they use electrolyzers, which is like doing a chemical reaction out of water. So water is hydrogen they derive. So it doesn't need to burn any other fuel or gas. So it's
Right.
basically clean. And the reason of the revenue deferment from Bloom Energy to MTAR Tech was the reason from they shifted their operation. Bloom Energy shifted their operation from Yuma to Santa Cruz, which is in the state of Arizona, due to high generation opportunity. Because the latter position, which was Santa Cruz, it was offering 15 kilowatt more than the former Yuma. So it still has hot boxes to begin operation, but the next set of order will need to redesign the suit, the higher generation load and ramp up needed for the relocation. So that's why they are bit of transitioning period right now. So
Yeah.
that's why they have cancelled currently, but they will as the new location will also need the whatever the fuel need
Yeah.
capacity they need.
So the solid oxide ones that you spoke about, those are what you mentioned as hot boxes, because they
Yeah,
basically take the methane and they heat it, and that causes the energy to be or the power to be
correct.
generated.
Hydrogen basically is what they did.
So I think there is a distinction between those two products, wherein the normal hot box is just methane to power directly, and the hydrogen one that you spoke about, which is the solid oxide fuel cell, is something that they
Correct.
much more recently entered into, and again is a very
Yeah.
huge innovation space. But
Breakthrough
yeah,
kind of.
both are deferments to the same sort of
Mhm.
space. And another reason I think was there was like an inventory restocking that they had to do, because
Yeah,
during COVID there was a lot of transit period
correct.
to which they used to get these
Mhm.
deliveries, and that transit period is now lesser. So with the whole transition from one location to another, and
Yeah.
the inventory restocking. They don't need as many hot boxes or the solid oxide fuel cells for the next quarter.
Hot boxes doesn't sound like a very clean business.
I mean, if you clean
Are
it
we,
well enough.
are we talking about methane?
You should put that the glasses and the joint thing that Snoop Dogg does. It's like when he talks about methane. But yeah, I mean, I think we don't give Bloom Energy enough credit, right? Because although
Mhm.
we may have come across this name fairly recently, the company is a huge global power in clean energy, wherein
Clean energy.
a lot like they're a big part in US, but more than anything, they're the first name in innovation when it comes to green hydrogen now. Because until recently, the world record for the largest like sustainable hydrogen generation plant was held by a Russian company, where I think it was a 2.6 megawatt plant. But I mean, Bloom Energy now holds the record with a 4 megawatt plant that they recently launched. And I mean, all the parts, all the solid oxide fuel cells, all the electrolyzers, all of it comes from MTAR Tech. They're one of the largest suppliers of Bloom Energy and the only ones from India. So,
From Antarctic. What?
no, 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 from India. MTAR Tech. No, no. So I think, as we said, although they make up for a huge chunk of MTAR's revenue, and Bloom Energy can't really sustain without MTAR either. So it's sort of like a two-way street. It's not like they can drop MTAR and grab someone else as easily.
Yeah,
It's
these
a
companies
symbiotic
usually have a lot of
relationship.
criticality, right? I think
Yeah,
the kind of products and services they do cater to,
yeah.
they're not easily replaceable. They have a very high moat.
Brand plug.
Moat
Yeah.
financial services. Disclaimer.
This is not
We'll announce
promotional.
exciting things later. Okay.
Yeah.
Only if SEO also captured
Words
voice.
that were uttered, Yeah, exactly.
Moat.
Stock investing, stock investing. Yeah. But so bottom line being the deferment of that whatever 160, 170 crores of revenue that was to come in FY24, but now will come in FY25 is not that much a cause for concern. It will be like a temporary blip in terms of Q2, Q3 performance being a little shaken up, but orders are still coming in strong because while this whole transition is happening and while they need to ramp up on the whole green hydrogen play that they're standing as innovators for, due to that ramp up, the orders for those particular products will come in Q3 and Q4 and leading up to FY25. So I think they're expecting right now the order book stands at about 1,000 crores odd for the first half of FY24. They're expecting at least 400 to 500 crores more coming in. So that's about a little more than 2.5 times FY23 revenue, which basically means 2 years of revenue is sorted.
Yeah. Which is actually less compared to some of the pure play defense companies, right? If you
Yeah,
look at HAL, Mazda Doc, BDL, these usually are in the range of 5 to 10 times of
yeah,
annual revenue, annual manufacturing revenue. If
right.
you take the service component out, then it's a appropriate comparison to make. Um, but yeah, of course, those are larger
It
than
is.
life numbers that these guys are
Also, I
getting.
think the turnaround time for all or most of
Larger.
these defense ones is 24 to 36 months, whereas these clean energy ones get executed within a quarter or two
Yeah.
at best. So it's also a function of that.
Order book coming to revenue.
Yeah, that transition is fairly quick.
Transition.
Also, because
Quick.
clean energy makes up for 60% of revenues and order book for them, so then automatically, I think that reflects. But yeah, so that part of the business is good. It's solid. And they're entering green hydrogen, which is a huge trending topic at the moment, not just on a global front, but even India, as they launched their green hydrogen mission, or rather our green hydrogen mission in 2023. And I think the capex outlay for that's about more than 19,000 crores.
Yeah.
That's a huge
For
amount
green
of it.
hydrogen
And
only.
just for green hydrogen, yeah. And about
Just.
90% of that is going towards indigenizing the production of those
Hmm.
solid oxide fuel cells and the electrolyzers, so that because
Hmm.
there already exists the notion that
Yeah.
India can become that big on the manufacturing front. They just need a little bit of a push, and MTAR could
Hmm.
definitely capitalize
Yeah.
on that
They're
because they've already
practically
got the tech.
working with the global leader, if you can say.
Exactly. So already
So if
that
India
puts their
comes,
foot in the door. Yeah, absolutely.
Hydrogen, unlike the other energy products, doesn't really have a supply constraint to that
Yeah.
extent.
yeah.
Uh, so it is fairly democratized across the world in terms of availability.
Yeah.
Of
Hmm.
course, something like a methane, not methane, but something which is natural gas से भी निकलता होगा ना, hydrogen,
Yeah,
or no?
but a little component, I think, right? I
Huh.
know methane is about
It's
78 to 80% of natural gas.
Mm.
The others are all argon and all of those noble gases.
No, no, I meant like the gas from pipelines.
Acha, okay, okay, okay.
Natural gas from there, if you can make hydrogen, but I am not sure. I think ammonia will
yeah.
be one part naturally, but if
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
process it further, make hydrogen, I'm not too sure. Ammonia में तो NH3 होता है ना ammonia.
Yeah. So H2
Okay.
they
Hydrogen
extract.
based on.
And, yeah.
But I don't think,
हाँ.
have they
Right.
discovered the tech to split the hydrogen from there?
No,
But
but ammonia
electrolyzers,
is in deficit in India, so you
Yeah.
have to import a lot of natural gas and direct it towards making ammonia. So there's no
Which is
point
futile,
converting
yeah.
ammonia into hydrogen. So hydrogen for India will have to always come from
Water.
whatever. Chaitanya knows the other sources. Not even water. Na water किधर है India में? So air.
clean water, yeah, like white hydrogen, which is the label for natural hydrogen there. Yes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but again, the
apparently
government
they
has been talking a lot about green hydrogen only, right? They've not been talking too much about the other forms of hydrogen, all that white and
And
black
green
hydrogen.
hydrogen is only possible through electrolysis, I think, as of now, which is basically
yeah,
splitting water into hydrogen and
splitting
oxygen.
water into atoms. So that is true.
But pretty cool stuff. And apart from this, also the rest of MTAR is also pretty solid. I think Chandrayaan and Aditya level L1 were just the start. There is
Hmm.
going to be a
Yeah.
lot more projects on the lunar, solar, and interplanetary front. I think there's one that's going to come up that ISRO has already begun work on, which is called the Gaganyaan mission, which MTAR is also a part of, which is basically interplanetary missions now going to. So MTAR will be responsible for the rocket propulsion systems for that, assisting in fueling the rocket mid-air in space
Mid-air,
and
yeah.
stuff like that. So it's a lot of cool stuff that even on the space
Cool
and
stuff,
defense,
yeah.
yeah, it's really cool. And another noteworthy thing that happened during MTAR last year, which also caused a little bit of that rally during the July to September front, was
Hmm.
they acquired something called a defense industrial license, which now allows them to like partner with MNCs from abroad, manufacture for them, and especially they're trying to get into this electronic systems for naval ships and submarines and stuff. So they're already
Yes.
partnering with yeah, they're already partnering with L&T, BHAL, and BDL and all of that to create these systems and sell them as Make in India. So yeah, pretty cool, pretty
So
cool.
order book is sorted, just deferred. So they'll do 20-25% growth, right? 25% growth. That's
Yeah, 20% growth is almost certain.
but even
Anything
like
above that
right,
is
like even after the guidance got cut by half, like it's still strong growth. Like
yeah,
20% is
Hmm.
not a low
yeah,
number. Right?
Yeah.
It's still a very
It's
good
not.
number in terms of revenue growth to achieve.
yeah,
Uh, so definitely explains why the stock still trades at a high
Still, yeah.
valuation. So
yeah,
the premium, I mean, despite the 25% fall, it still trades at a good 47, 48 times one
yeah.
year forward,
Yeah.
which is, I think, still
It is a
justified,
good thing. Yeah,
premium and justified.
this is also a little bit scarcity premium, right? Because there aren't too many people who do rocket related and are listed,
Hmm.
or who are this into green hydrogen and are listed.
Yeah, so I
All
think
right.
it's a factor of like two, three things, right? So
Yeah,
one being the criticality of services and products provided.
yeah,
So customer stickiness is usually high and value addition is high. So hence your margins will always be better, return ratios will be better, cash flows will be strong. You'll have like marquee clientele. you'll always be in the sexy space. So high growth space automatically translates into a bare minimum growth expectation for the company. On top of which, it can obviously outperform by gaining market share or entering new areas.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, and of course, numbers at the end have to justify it. So beyond the numbers, also like a lot of the premium gets justified by just virtue of what they do and how they've strategized
Yeah.
on achieving what they're doing.
Absolutely.
But what
Huh.
is up with the promoters? Like, great company, great valuation, great whatever. But
Yeah.
what is
Yeah.
up with the promoters?
So I think the initial spook that got investors a little panicky started sometime in June, where I think what 190, 220 odd crores worth of promoter holdings was sold, but through a bulk deal to various funds. But it was misconstrued, obviously. I mean, not misconstrued, like taken into account as promoters not having confidence. And this consisted of like close family of the core management. So MD's wife, MD's bhabhi, stuff like that. So within the Reddy family is where the sell-off was happening. Although these were personnel who were either ex-directors or got this their holding through gift from their grandparents because this company was founded in the 70s.
Yeah.
So this was selling off from family and not core management, but still promoters. So
Yeah, like I mean, promoters, wife, promoters, same. Same.
yeah. So
Like I
in
mean,
fact,
And his wife also
specifically,
gonna give him the share,
yeah.
whatever she earns.
Specifically, Kalpana Reddy, who I mean, I think is the MD's wife, has been selling an immense amount over the course of June, September, and December. So that is a little alarming.
Still
It could
continuing,
just,
right?
yeah, the latest block deal she made was, I think, bulk deal was around December 2023, where she sold an additional 11 crores. So I think at the IPO time, she held about 4.5% of the company pre-IPO, and now it's under three.
oh, there's still a lot more. Matlab, she
Yeah,
can
yeah, yeah,
still.
there's still a lot.
The
Yeah,
property holding went from like 45% to 39%, right?
yeah.
There's 6 percentage points that got offloaded from the promoter,
Yeah, out
absorbed
of
by
which 1.5 is hers only. Yeah,
1.5 is hers, but there may be
yeah,
three more coming because this chick wants to do more, right?
yeah. This chick is probably 70 years old.
Whoever this chick is.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it is a little bit of a red flag.
Not red flag, but it's just like, I mean, like as a promoter, if you get lured by the upside, for example, the stock has done really well, it has doubled, and you say, okay, bye bye, I've made my money. That kind of means that you don't see upside in the company anymore, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
at
at
least
least
that's
that's
what. Huh,
the
exactly.
signaling is that they may do it
Yeah,
for like buying a house or gifting to their children or just blowing away. But like whatever the reason,
yeah,
signaling is clearly negative from a minority shareholder's standpoint.
true. Yeah. Hmm.
Interesting. So last week we covered a company that had promoters buying shares of the company by whatever
Yeah.
means. And this week we have a company where the
Selling.
promoters are selling shares.
Yeah.
Both the stocks have
Both
been down. Just FYI.
and both stocks made the promoters made a profit only for sure.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Promoters तो will make a profit ना वो तो
Yeah.
अपना
So
मतलब seat
minority
पे जाता है
shareholders to
at the end of it made money.
yeah,
They
They're
are the
holding
always on top of them.
yeah,
and the cost of acquisition is not in monetary terms. Cost of acquisition is in blood, sweat, tears.
yeah, which can't be quantified also.
Can't be quantified. I don't know if this Kalpana check has worked. Kalpana, do comment.
I think she was also on the board at some point, but she hasn't been functioning as a voting leader lately. But yeah, she was on as a director or of some kind in the recent past. But yeah, it's all Reddy family related. Hmm.
But the selling has been absorbed, right, by institutional, or
Yes, yes.
it's
So
like open market.
FII stakes have been upped.
Increase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Promoters hotboxed institutional investors.
Yeah, I'm sure the institutional investors are having fun.
Not really, not over the last 3 4 months.
They're
It's a
having a
beating.
bad trip after that hot box. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But
But
hopefully
there's
it
more.
won't be once there's some good news after Q3 results come out. Hopefully, Q3, Q4.
Q3, Q4 should be music to the ears.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Some
Get them
nice
back in the
ED.
groove. Lollapalooza MTAR Tech version. Yeah, but still pretty solid company in terms of what they do. An
I
interesting
like how
read.
this is a good play on brand plugin. I like how this is a good play on several different themes, right? Like like green
Yeah.
energy or clean energy or green hydrogen is a transition from combustion energy to non-combustion or renewable sources. Then they're doing the whole defense theme is
Space.
about internationalization and India moving from an import oriented nation to domestically producing. And then you've got the entire space thing where India has finally joined the race amongst the big nations in terms of embarking on and successfully implementing a lot of these endeavors.
Yeah.
So it's a good proxy play for several value shifts.
Sector.
Um and fits hence very well in what we sort of are very gung-ho on when it comes to, say, our portfolio, for example, value migration, which
Yeah.
is based on this thesis, right? Invest in
Link in the
value
description.
shifts from value shifts from one place to another, so that ultimately the value shift benefits investors in a disproportionate manner, and helps in wealth creation over the long run.
True.
Yes.
Also, every one of this sector falls under the category of Atmanirbhar Bharat. So, if anyone is
Yeah. So
patriotism,
all the
we got you covered.
Amrit Kal.
That's
Okay,
about
bye.
it then. MTAR Tech. Check out the blog also, link in description where there's a lot more numbers and a lot more evidence to what we've said. And yeah,
For more on value shifts, whether through a blog or through themes like value migration, visit
visit
repeating.com.
repeating.com. क्या बात है, brand plug तो ऐसा. And on that note, thank you for joining us this week, and we'll get back to you next week with yet another interesting stock. Or we're calling guests now on the podcast, so hopefully you'll see that coming on in a couple of weeks as well. Stay tuned, and thank you for watching, and that's a wrap.